cherry stones. The street behind Nikolaevsk Military Hospital, St Petersburg, July the 12th, 1874. I can make a louse as big as a dog, the drunkard says. Yeah, sure. The Century's not interested in the drunkard's claims. Here comes the big black hansom cab again, kicking up the dust. Yevgeny sees all this through his binoculars. You don't believe me, the drunk says. You're drunk, the Century says. Hey, the drunk calls over at the guard's two comrades on the other side of the gate. Don't bother them. Why don't you believe me? Even a drinker can be right. Why don't you leave me alone? Go and eat some cherries. He motions to a shabby figure sitting on the pavement some 20 paces away. He's languidly eating cherries and throwing the stones into the gutter to his right. I'll want any cherries. The hansom cab pulls up and, like clockwork, the well-dressed lady gets out and walks towards the yard gates, as every day for a week or so now. Look at her, the guard says to the drunk. Who does she go to see dressed like that? The drunk takes a swig out of a small bottle he produces from his coat pocket, then offers it to the guard, who bats it away. I shouldn't even be talking to you. Get the policeman to take me away. He nods over towards the young copper, whose beat seems to be the wall of the hospital yard, but not much more. Him? He's always here, but he never does anything. He should pick that tramp up for a start, for littering the Tsar's highway. He's not littering, says the drunk. He's throwing stones in the gutter. I admit, he takes another swift swig. If he throws them out the other way, there could be trouble. A cart laden with wood pulls up beside the hansom cab. The yard gates open to let the lumber cart in, and the young, well-dressed lady slips through just before it clip-clops through behind her, leaving the hansom cab, which must have cost a pretty penny, waiting for her in the street. The gate will remain open now until the cart has been unloaded. They leave the doors open? The drunk asks as the cart follows the lady and her parasol into the gloom of the interior. In winter, too much wood to come through the main gates. Huh? The drunk ponders. That's why you and your two friends are here. We're always here, the sentry says. It's the copper they bring in for extra security when the back gates are open. Ah, the drunk says. 4 men on guard, and none of you questioned the mademoiselle. Don't worry about a thing, mate, the guard says. No one gets out of here. The cells don't even have windows to pass notes through. They think they might have a better chance of legging it if they come here to the hospital, but if anything, there's more guards here. He nods towards the grey, oblong building. If you're in here, you're in here, and that's that. From here, you're either going back to prison, or you're floating off up to meet the Lord God Almighty. But you're not getting out of these gates. Nor the front ones, neither. The drunk considers this and then begins again. So, do you want to see a dose as big as a log? Or not? A what? A louse? You said a dose. What's a dose? As the drunk and the sentry try to disentangle their misunderstanding, a well-dressed gentleman with an umbrella walks straight up to the young policeman and engages him in earnest conversation. The 2 other men, having reached a pause in their colloquy, watch as, after some seconds, the policeman leads the monocled gent away, ushering him before him as they disappear down Ulitsa Pushkin. Now what? The guard asks. I think you should see this, the drunk insists. But this time he has taken his microscope out of his pocket and holds it in his grubby hands. What do you give me for it? What is it? Look! Look through. Here, no, wait. We need something to look at. A louse. Get me a louse. He bows his head down. What is it? A microscope. Science is what it is. He kneels down on the road before the guard so that the official can search his crown for lice. And just as the guard sighs and lays his musket down on the pavement, a violin begins to play in the second-floor room across the street from the prison yard. This is new, the sentry says, as he begins to look around the stranger's pate for lice. Must be some new neighbours. At least they know how to play. The gypsy czardas ring out loud and clear. Well, if they play like that, they can play whenever they want, the guard thinks. But then again, something feels strange. The sentry lifts his head briefly to survey the scene. The tramp is still chewing cherries and spitting the stones into the gutter. 2 by 2 now. The policeman has gone away. The gate is still open while the wood is being unloaded. His comrades are at the far end of the yard. And the prisoners, this is exactly the time they... Yes, here come the prisoners, shuffling along, but glorying in their hour of daylight. The tall, ruddy-faced man with the big red beard is at the head of a group of 6, who begin to amble over to the exercise yard. In an instant, he takes off his cap and grabs it to his chest. Then he charges, straight for the now unguarded open gate. The 2 distant comrades are too distant to help, and the man is out of the gate before they can react. As for the chief sentry, well, he turns round to size up the situation and finds suddenly there's no drunk and no musket. The drunk has made off with it, the thieving bastard. So the sentry's unarmed and helpless as he watches the tall fella run like a bullet through the yard gates and dive through the carriage's open door under his very nose. In a matter of seconds, Redbeard and the well-dressed gent inside clatter off at a speed one could hardly imagine. The sentry is left to survey the carriageless road. The policeman hasn't returned, of course, and now the beggar's gone too, leaving just the cherry stones in the gutter. The gravity of the situation is dawning on the sentry and his 2 colleagues who've come running up to the open gate. They are all about to get a right royal, literally, bollocking, and maybe lose their jobs and maybe end up in the stinking prison they're supposed to be guarding. They played us like a balalaika, Yuri, one of them says. Yuri snarls. Droshky, now! That's the first thing, obviously. Get after the outlaws. What are we waiting for? But the other 2 men stand, impassive, motioning to the street corner where you can normally rely on there being 10 or 12 droshkis ready to go at any given moment. Not a one. All hired out. What a coincidence. And the woman? They all turn to look into the yard. Too late. Just the woodman packing up and getting ready to go. He's been standing watching this episode, hands on hips, bemused, but now hunger's beginning to get the better of him. Well, says Yuri, that's our goose cooked. Cigarette, and he offers a tattered papyrus to Sergei and the other guy as they wait for fury to descend on them. The Czardas finishes with a tremendous flourish and a stamp of feet, then the applause. The guests have all had a drink before dinner and are now seated at table, ready to begin the celebratory feast. The tall, jolly man can't be called the host, as this is not his house, but he is clearly leading the toasts. To Anton, for playing the violin today. Twice, laughter. To Anton. The guests drink. To Masha. Again, Masha blushes. For dressing like a prig for 7 days. And Masha. 8, she corrects him. For 8 days in succession, a bourgeois lady, a coquette with a parasol. Not once did anyone question her presence. What did you actually do, my dear? Why, I took a turn around the log piles until I could see the drozhki was about to leave, and then I sauntered back into my waiting cab. And now you've acquired a liking for the high life, haven't you? Masha objects with gestures and a grimace. Well, weren't you telling me just now you were thinking of buying a poodle and a new silk bonnet? A drink to Masha! They drink. And to Dr. Weimar, inventor of this crazy plan. Weimar is next to him. The ruddy man plants a kiss on the doctor's forehead, and the guests cheer.
Weimar, Dr. Weimar,
Doctor. And to Oleg, of course, a natural beggar. More laughter. And Sasha, a natural drunk. More laughter and more drinking. Once the toasts are made, they all fall to eating a hearty meal. Of course, we're not out of the woods yet, says Masha, seated at the big man's side. We have to get you to Scandinavia. Well, we're safe here, he suggests. I wouldn't bet on it. They'll be out all over St. Petersburg, and a whole district looking for you. Roadblocks, everything. Well, all this is coming off first thing tomorrow, he says, tussling his ample beard and scraggy red hair. May as well have a target painted on me looking like this. And you should eat, man. Eat some food after what you've been through, Masha insists. The last 6 months in the detention house were almost pleasant compared to my year in that other stinking hell. Oh, you liked it in the end, eh? I'd probably be there forever if they hadn't transferred me to the hospital. Good health to bad health, says Orest, raising his glass in a mock mini toast. Pyotr's smile disappears for a moment as he gets himself serious and draws the doctor close. In seriousness, I say your plan was genius. And the help of all these people, look at them. And now I'm free. Sure, Masha says, listening in. Free until they catch you again. This is just the first step. But Pyotr is carefree, hardly listening. He turns to Weimar again. And how did you know when to distract the sentry? When the policeman had gone. And how did you get the policeman to go? Stefan here strolled up and asked him to show where a particular property was that he'd heard was to let. Brilliant, Pyotr laughs. And the cherry stones? That was the signal that all was going well, Weimar explains. Cherry stones to the right, carry on. Cherry stones to the left, abort mission. But as soon as the main sentry put his musket down. You're a genius, Weimar, and the music to give me the signal. Who would have thought? How did you control all these things from one spot? Come and look. Weimar rises from his chair and takes Pyotr to the window. The binoculars, he says, stretching out his hand and snapping his fingers. Are these the ones you used? Pyotr asks as they are passed to Weimar. The very same. Now, look. He hands them to the tall man and directs his view towards the prison yard wall. You can see right from the corner where the sentries were gathered, over here. Keep going, right past the gate. The policeman was about there, the hansom cab just along here, and Oleg was sat just there. These are very good prisms, says Pyotr. I can even see the cherry stones in the gutter. My main fear was that here we would be too far away for you to hear the violin. That's why we chose some nice, lively music. Your main fear, says Pyotr, still sweeping the scene through the magnifying lenses. There are 100 things that can go wrong with a crackpot plan like this. Maybe, says Weimar, but it is full of checks and safeguards, ready to be called off at any moment. As soon as you took off your cap, I knew it was going to be a success. Because that would mean I'd received your message. That's right. Got to me through a windowless wall. That's right, says Weimar, smiling. It's a good job that I'm interested in watches, Pyotr replies, and that I like to dismantle them and reassemble them to see how they work. And that you had some time on your hands. Ah, yes, that's a good joke. I had time on my hands, in both senses. And patience. So we ask you to be patient now for a few more days, says Weimar, taking back the binoculars as they are offered to him. Well, as you can imagine, Pyotr says, I'm anxious to be away from here. But then, as you say, for the moment, they won't think of looking for us where we are, so... He returns to his place at the table and raises his glass one more time. Another toast! Another toast! The guests echo. In my prisons I was alone for long periods, Pyotr begins. But I also met some interesting people inside. Not all mad, not all bad. One of them stopped me one day as I was speaking. You philosophers, he said. You philosophers! I was often called that, the philosopher. They may even have known about my writings, but I doubt it. And I didn't ask. Anyway, so he says to me, you philosophers, always banging on about freedom, and you don't know what it is. So I said to him, okay, sir, then enlighten me. What is freedom? And he said, freedom, my friend, is the state of not being in prison. To freedom! He thrusts his glass in the air. To freedom! To freedom!